welcome and thank you for joining us today. We are here to talk about key themes and trends in sustainability for 2025. My name is Kaylee Potter. I'm an account executive at Sweep. We are Europe's leading carbon and ESG data platform, and I've been working here for about 18 months now and in the climate tech space for about 3 years. I'm also a city lead for Women in Climate, so a global community. And so if you ever want to nerd out about data, climate, anything like that, it'd be great to connect. I'm really delighted to be joined here today by Nalise. We've been working together for about 6 months now, and it would be great for you to take a moment to introduce yourself.
Sure. Thank you so much, Kaylee. It's so nice to chat to you again. Hi, everyone. So as Kaylee mentioned, we work together at Sweep as part of my role as a freelancer in sustainability. So I work as a consultant alongside Sweep and many other platform providers, as well as other consultancies and directly with clients as well, to solve sustainability challenges and issues, whether it be collecting data for the first time, trying to understand what trends there might be when analyzing that data, reporting the data to various different stakeholders, or just getting a better understanding of what the sustainability landscape is all about, is what I'm really passionate about. I'm from South Africa. I live in Cape Town now, so enjoying some sunny weather, but often visit the UK and spend a lot of time working with clients in Europe and in the UK as well.
Oh, thank you so much for joining me, Nalise. I know that you work with lots and lots of different clients, different companies, different scales of business. And so I'd love to be able to pick your brain today on some of those key trends that you're hearing coming up for next year, 2025. So yeah, let's get started. What are you hearing?
I think what I'm hearing is probably what everyone else is hearing, which is CSRD. Those broad, dreaded letters to some and celebrated letters to others. I think it's amazing. I think it's amazing now to have a regulation that's coming in that is requiring companies to really transparently disclose what their positioning is, really start thinking about what it is that they're doing, and quite importantly as well, not doing, and thinking about how they can change that so that they can become more and more sustainable. I think in the past, there was a big push for companies to disclose from a mandatory perspective where that was required. And some companies were doing it voluntarily. Some were doing it because they wanted to appeal to a particular market. But I think really what is necessary is for everyone, companies big and small, to start thinking about the impact they have, both positive and negative, and how they're impacted by, society and the environment as well. And then start disclosing that, because I think once you start disclosing that and everyone starts talking about the problem, we can solve the problem a lot more easily together. So yeah, I think CSRD is probably the main thing that's on everyone's lips right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're hearing it heaps as well. And it's quite exciting being part of a European platform, because I think the EU really is pushing the boundaries with disclosure globally. I feel like we're part of that, leading the rest of the world on a journey with us. But ultimately, there seems to be this wildly varying levels of maturity across the different clients that we're engaging with, because everybody's starting with this blank page. Everybody's got, they've got to whittle down their 1,100 different metrics that they need to look at and report on, and move away from that blank slate to actually pulling that data together. I think some of the interesting companies that I'm hearing about are not just looking at it as a tick box exercise, but a chance to really embed more sustainable practices into their business. But ultimately, it's a real data collection exercise at this stage, right? And so, what are you hearing for data in 2025?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's exactly what you said. Companies should treat it as a gap analysis exercise. This is going to be a lot of effort. It's a lot of data to collect. It's a lot of conversations that need to be had. And I think if you look at it as this tick box or this checklist that you need to complete, and at the end of it, everything is good, then you're really missing the point. The idea is to use the CSRD as a guide to help you to understand, what is material for your business, what is not. Then start collecting data on those material issues so you have a better understanding of what your positioning is, and look, in some areas you're going to be strong, and that's amazing, and you can keep building on that. But in other areas, you're going to be weaker, and you're going to have a game plan that helps you to move from a position of weakness into a position of strength, particularly if you want to remain competitive, right? So I think really treating data as something which is so valuable, because it's going to help you to make much better decisions, and it's going to drive decision making in the business, very, 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 very much. So yeah, I would say that's what I'm seeing in terms of data, and then in the way that the sort of different companies are managing it. Depends on the maturity. Some companies are sort of early on in the process, as you mentioned, they're still kind of looking at this like a blank slate. They're not really sure where to start. In which case, for them, already getting into good practice of using a good tool is going to help save them a lot of time. It's going to help this feel a lot less scary. Other companies, I think, who are a bit more mature and have probably already tried this year to use Excel or to use Word, probably found, like me, that it's extremely hard to use. We can come on to that, I'm sure, a little bit later in our discussion, but having a good tool, will allow you to just make this a very painless process, as opposed to something which can drag on for a very long time and, can leave you feeling very frustrated, or even desperate, I think, with the amount of data that it is that you have to collect and work through.
Absolutely. And I think, one of the key things is really about just get started, right? And yes, we want to get started with data collection, but, it's not just about collecting that data. It's about using that then to be able to drive that climate action within the business. If you've got your granular data, then you can really start to model how you're going to reduce and build out those initiatives that are going to help you hit your targets. So when you think about climate action, moving beyond just disclosure, what are you seeing as a real key focus for 2025?
Yeah, good question. And I'm happy that we're not just stopping at data. It's definitely more about the action and the doing, underpinned by good data, obviously, so that you know what to focus on and why. But yeah, I think, net zero is something which is now here to stay. And I think whether we hit it in 2050 or whether we hit it later, we need to start planning now. And I think companies are seeing more and more now that the earlier they plan and the more ambitious they are now, the more likely they are to, achieve some of the targets that they're setting for themselves, and the more likely that they are to actually be in a position where there is reduced risk, and more opportunities for them. So, yeah, I think a lot of companies are looking at their sustainability strategies, if they have one, or if they've never developed one. They're starting to think about how do they incorporate, a low carbon economy within that? How do they incorporate decarbonization within that? And obviously, it doesn't just stop with them. It extends all the way through to their value chain, which is really what CSRD is also trying to drive. Is to make sure that companies are aware of the risks and the opportunities related to climate, and also obviously social and governance issues as well, but then that they're actually able to do something about it. How can you become more resilient? Well, the only way you become more resilient is by identifying where some of those risks are, and leveraging or capitalizing on opportunities to try and mitigate those risks wherever possible, and then really gathering more and more data that helps you to understand whether your exposure or your vulnerability to some of those risks or opportunities is increasing or not. So yeah, I think companies are doing a lot. I think that they're trying very hard to see what they can do. And again, I wouldn't worry too much, exactly like what you said earlier about being perfect. Don't wait until you've got everything in place or until you have the perfect decarbonization strategy before you start investing into sort of planning that decarbonization. Just get going, see what you can find, work with the data you have, and then focus on getting better data, and using that to drive action going forward.
Absolutely. It's such a journey, isn't it? I mean, every client that I speak to is at a slightly different stage on the journey, but it's all about making progress as we step forward. And you touch on that kind of supply chain data. It's so exciting now, because I think a few years ago, it seemed almost impossible that we would be able to get here. And now, the technology exists, the platforms exist to really help streamline that data collection process and make that scope 3 so much less intimidating now. few years ago, it was all about spreadsheets, and, scope 3 was just too much for a spreadsheet. Scope 1 and 2, you can kind of get by with a spreadsheet, but you start tapping into scope 3 and it's just not enough anymore. But luckily, I feel like technology has really caught up with that space. You kind of touched on a couple of other key points as well. I know we've been focusing a lot about climate and carbon data, but obviously CSRD brings so much more into the conversation, and you touched on a couple of additional points there. So, what are you seeing beyond this climate action as well for 2025?
Yeah, such a good question. And I'm so happy you brought that up, Kaylee, because I think it's something that is so important not to forget, is that even though, particularly now in the last couple of years, climate has taken the focus and it's kind of been in the spotlight as something that companies need to focus on. And absolutely it is. But I think, environment and social are tied to each other. You can't really have an environmental impact without there being some sort of a social impact as well. And that could be positive or it could be negative, but there is this inherent link between the two. And so I think CSRD does it very well in terms of balancing the environment, the social, and the governance requirements and the actions and the disclosures. But also more and more, I think what companies are seeing is that there is a need to very transparently start to measure and then disclose on lots of different metrics like DE&I, and really focus on trying to promote inclusivity and fairness, because I think it's something that's spoken about a lot, but I think it's not often backed by credible action. So, for a company to consider themselves to be truly sustainable, I think they have to be able to say that both the environmental and the social dimensions are being captured, and that they are driving action forward in both of those areas. It can't just be on the environmental side or just be on the social side. So yeah, it's nice to see a shift towards, social equity and justice.
And I think really what we're talking about is like expanding those data sets that we need to start thinking about, and expanding the teams within an organization that we need to start collaborating with. We're thinking so much more than just carbon now. And so that engagement is just going to get much further and wider. And I think one of the things that really excites me about Sweep is that, no matter how much kind of power we're building in under the hood to be able to deliver that kind of clever carbon accounting and, pull in all those data sets, there's a real focus on usability, because I think ultimately if you want to embed all these values across an organization, it needs to be with a tool that's very intuitive and gives each user, what it is that they need to see. And obviously, I keep coming back to technology. That's my whole area of expertise. But your area is so much broader than that, and you work with your clients on so many more kind of different points. So it's interesting to see your idea of, how does technology really play a part in this?
Yeah, it's such a good question. It's like you said, I work with so many different clients and so many different stakeholders. Some companies, big or small, have no sustainability team at all. And it's very much sort of decentralized. Everyone is sharing some form of a responsibility, or someone in marketing has been assigned a task, or someone in a different department has been assigned the task of reporting against something. And then I work with other companies or clients that they have a fairly large sustainability team, or even a dedicated sustainability manager or head of sustainability. And so it's interesting to see how these different companies and clients and stakeholders all leverage technology in a slightly different way. I think for companies which are small, where the responsibility is really shared, I actually think that's very powerful, because it means that you are really embedding sustainability across the organization. There's this ability to streamline the reporting and the communication, because instead of there being Chinese whispers between lots of different people, everyone's taking responsibility and everyone's coming together to really bring their knowledge, to bring their expertise, to kind of solve a challenge or respond to a requirement. And technology, I think, can really, really help with that, because again, if you have a centralized platform and you're able to share out that responsibility and then centralize the data, everyone can kind of look at that and kind of become upskilled and see how their role or responsibility or even the data that they've inputted is impacting others within the organization. And then I think businesses that have a dedicated sustainability lead, how they're really leveraging this is, gone are the days where a sustainability professional was only looking at a couple of things and, they had to have a couple of audits done a year or a couple of assessments done a year and respond to a requirement or a report need. Now, they're juggling a lot of different requirements, and it's impossible, I think, for them to get to everything that they need to without reaching for external help unless they leverage technology. And where they do and they leverage powerful platforms, Sweep is a good example of that. What they can really do is they can start to delegate a lot of the responsibility that they have to various different team members across the organization, ask them to become engaged, get them upskilled through things like Sweep School is a good example, or through other guidance, and then help them to get to a point where they can actually manage sustainability instead of responding to every need and task as it comes. So yeah, it's been very, very interesting to see different organizations leverage it slightly differently, and even to see auditors leverage it nowadays.
Oh yeah, I mean, when we think about the experience for an auditor, what we hear back from our clients is, moving out of spreadsheets where an audit process can take months of back and forth over emails into, having everything in one system, a full audit log against every granular line of data that exists within the platform, being able to add comments or documentation to back up, why things have changed, is so valuable. And I've even seen auditors, having calls with the Sweep ESG experts to really understand how to use the platform. And then they can really be empowered within the auditor read-only profile to go in and dig around and find everything that they need. And it just saves our customers so much time.
Definitely, definitely. And I think it also just means that that auditor can kind of get on board a lot sooner. They understand the methodology that's being used. They understand how they can query data. It's a very efficient process. So, I mean, I've been very thankful for having Sweep on a couple of projects where we haven't had to dig around in Excels. We've just been able to sort of let them have access to the platform, ask their questions, and yeah, go from there.
And you touched on Sweep, like obviously you've got lots of different offerings that you can give your clients and lots of different interesting projects that you can engage with. You see the opportunity and the benefits for your clients using technology. There are so many out there, right? There are so many different platforms, and ultimately we all claim to do the same kind of thing, kind of pulling together that data, helping you with disclosure, whatever that might be. I'm biased. I'm obviously Sweep is my entire day job, but what is it that made Sweep stand out to you, and why did you want to start working with us?
Yeah, it's such a good question. I am someone who is a people's person. So as much as I love data and really getting down into the detail, I think you can't have a bad day if you work with good people, no matter how difficult the challenge is, no matter what problems you're running into. If you have a good team that you're working with, then I think that makes all the difference. And Sweep has really done that. I don't know where you found all these amazing people, but you managed to find them and put them all together, and put it alongside an amazing offering, which is really just such a strong platform that isn't a carbon reporting platform. It's not an ESG reporting platform. It is a platform, I think, that allows customers and clients of all sizes, of all levels of maturity, of all levels of understanding when it comes to sustainability and ESG to interact and collect data, analyze their data super simply, report on their data in so many different ways, and not just climate data, wider ESG data too. And then get to that next step, which is the action part. I think a lot of platforms kind of get stuck on the data collection piece. They might have some nice dashboards that help their clients to analyze a little bit or to draw some meaningful insights, but they don't necessarily enable that client to act. And I think that's where Sweep kind of comes in. I think on the surface, it looks like an intuitive platform to use, and it really is, but it becomes more and more intuitive the more you use it. It becomes more and more interesting the more you use it. And even in the short time that I've been working with you guys, so many new types of functionality have been released. There's so many new changes that customers have asked for that are being implemented. And there really is just this transparency. What you see is what you get. If there's a problem, it's responded to. No one's trying to trick anyone. We're all just trying to, I think, move towards the same goal. And we want success for the customers, I think, as much as the customers do for themselves. And so I think, yeah, being able to work collaboratively rather than a customer just handing the data off and never really understanding what any of it means or how they can make a change is probably, I think, what sets Sweep apart from a lot of the other platforms out there.
Oh, thank you. No, that's really great to hear. I mean, you're so right about being focused on action. Like, our clients report up to 40% of their time is saved on data collection. And the point is not that you need 40% fewer in your sustainability team. It's so that you can unlock that time to move towards, planning those reduction scenarios, identifying what those levers are that you're going to bring into the business and focus that time and energy there instead. I think that all comes down to, we are an Entreprise Mission, which is a French program that embeds our values of decarbonising the economy into our business by law. And that's something that we're audited against by KPMG. So yeah, we really do kind of live by those values. They're not just words on a slide. It's something that we really strive for and support our clients for. But yeah, I mean, thank you so much, Nalise. Honestly, it's such a joy to work with you. I'm really excited to see, what projects we get to work on together in 2025. I think it's going to be such a massive year, and yeah, a massive year for climate action. We're halfway through the decisive decade on that path to 2030. Let's work together and drive some climate action. Thank you.
Yeah, looking forward to it, Katie. Yeah, thank you so much.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.